Welcome to the deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you with us today because we are tackling a scenario that genuinely keeps business owners awake at night.
Oh, absolutely. It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for a founder.
Right. So I want you to imagine something for a second. You wake up tomorrow and the core leader of your business, maybe that's you, maybe it's your founder, or maybe it's that one brilliant ops manager who holds the whole chaotic puzzle together. They are suddenly, inexplicably not there.
Just gone.
Just gone, not answering the phone, not coming into the office. What actually happens to the business? Does it keep running smoothly? Or does the entire operation just grind to a screeching halt by lunchtime?
It's a terrifying hypothetical, honestly.
Yeah.
But it is an essential one because it exposes the absolute bedrock, or really the hidden fragility, of a company's structural integrity.
Yeah.
When you pull that central pin, you see very quickly what the business is actually made of.
And that high-stakes reality is the launching pad for our mission today. We are looking at some deeply insightful material from Greystride. The primary focus of their research is the strategic importance of succession planning, specifically within the logistics and transport sector in South Africa.
Right, which is a wild environment to study.
Completely. But we're going to flip the script today. Our goal here is to tear down the assumption that succession planning is just some quiet, distant exit strategy for retirement. We want to explore why it is actually an immediate, aggressive growth strategy that protects the business you're building right now.
I want to set the tone right out of the gate here.
Mm-hmm.
While this analysis is grounded in the high-intensity world of South African logistics, which frankly serves as a phenomenal stress test for any business theory, the psychological traps and the operational lessons we're going to explore, they apply to absolutely anyone listening who is trying to build a lasting organization.
Whether you're in tech, retail, whatever.
Exactly. Whether you are running a fleet of 80 trucks, a fast-growing tech startup, or a regional manufacturing plant, the fundamental mechanics of organizational dependency remain exactly the same.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand why succession planning is so critical, we have to look at the environment that serves as the backdrop for this research. The logistics industry is described as an absolute pressure cooker.
Oh, it's brutal.
We are talking about razor-thin margins, incredibly long payment cycles from corporate clients, the constant, unpredictable barrage of rising fuel costs, plus strict regulatory compliance and all the daily headaches of driver and fleet management.
It is heavy.
Very heavy. It's an asset-heavy operation where things are moving literally 24/7. In that environment, everything depends on continuity. Loads must move or the whole chain breaks.
And in that kind of intense, high-stakes environment, leadership weight has a natural tendency to consolidate. It gravitates toward the top and sits incredibly heavily on just one or two individuals.
What a bottleneck.
Exactly like a bottleneck. Let's create a hypothetical scenario to make this concrete. Imagine a founder. Let's call him the ultimate bottleneck. He started with one truck 10 years ago and now has a fleet of 50.
A huge success story on paper.
On paper, yes. Because he built it from the ground up, he is the only one making the key financial decisions. He's the sole face managing the major client relationships.
Right.
Out on the floor, he might have an ops manager who is holding the daily schedule together purely through years of accumulated experience and gut instinct. It works right up until the exact moment that it doesn't.
But couldn't a founder argue that no one else is going to care about those razor-thin margins as much as they do? I mean, that consolidation of power feels like a survival mechanism when the stakes are that high.
It absolutely feels like a survival mechanism, which is why it's such a common trap. But the fallout of that instability is severe. What's fascinating here is the sheer speed of the consequences when leadership uncertainty hits a high-pressure environment like this.
It's
So fast. We aren't just talking about having a bad quarter and recovering later. The research lays out immediate visceral risks. You face instant operational disruption. That leads to staff uncertainty, which often triggers key resignations because top talent doesn't want to go down with a sinking ship.
Makes sense.
And cash flow destabilizes almost instantly because the one person who usually chases the invoices is missing.
And most critically, in a competitive market, clients simply do not wait around for you to figure out your internal drama. If there is instability or if a load is late because the one guy who knows the route is unreachable, clients will take their contracts and move their loads elsewhere that same afternoon.
That is the ultimate vulnerability. The business doesn't have the resilience to absorb even a minor shock, let alone a major leadership absence.
Which brings us to a massive aha moment in the material. It points out that if all the critical knowledge, all the supplier negotiations, and all the deep understanding of the financial numbers live purely in the founder's head, the entire business is fundamentally exposed.
Exposed and capped.
Right. There is a specific concept from the source that frames this perfectly. A business that cannot function without its founder is not yet a scalable or transferable asset. It is a job with trucks attached.
Wow. That phrase should be a wake-up call for every entrepreneur, a job with trucks attached. I want to pause and ask you, the listener, to reflect on that for a second. What stands out to you about that distinction?
It hits hard.
It does. The difference between a scalable business, an entity that exists, functions, and generates revenue on its own, versus a demanding, high-paying job where you just happen to own the heavy machinery. It requires a profound shift in how you view the daily grind.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If building a business that operates without you is the ultimate goal, why do so many smart, capable leaders actively put off succession planning?
Ego, mostly.
Yeah, the research uncovers a massive mental block. Most owners associate succession planning almost exclusively with retirement. It feels like stepping away, hanging up the boots, admitting that your time is done. Nobody wants to feel irrelevant, so that mindset completely paralyzes them.
That is the exact mental block we need to dismantle. The data suggests we need to reframe this entirely. Succession planning is not an exit plan. It is a growth strategy.
The growth strategy.
Yes. By intentionally developing future leaders, you are not preparing for your departure. You are strengthening the business right this second. When you build a capable second line of leadership, decision-making across the entire board improves.
Because it's not all waiting on one person.
Exactly. Accountability increases because operations aren't just relying on your personal oversight. Operational performance stabilizes, team morale goes up because people see a path for their own growth, and overall organizational risk plummets.
I think we can look at this through a really relatable lens. Think about the difference between being a firefighter and being a map maker.
Oh, I like that.
If you are the only person in the company who knows how to solve a crisis, you are going to spend every single day running into burning buildings, putting out operational fires. You are exhausted, but you feel essential.
That is the trap right there. You think holding the hose makes you essential. But the real value to the organization is in being the map maker. Building a second line of leadership, actually trusting and training someone else to hold the hose, gives you a very specific kind of freedom.
Freedom to do what, exactly?
It gives you the freedom to step away from the daily firefighting so you can focus purely on the big picture strategy. You get to figure out where the company is going next year, rather than just worrying about how it's going to survive the afternoon.
But that transition requires a massive amount of trust. And trust gets incredibly complicated when we introduce the next major theme from the research, family dynamics.
It certainly does.
The material highlights a very sensitive reality. In South Africa, a huge percentage of these logistics and transport fleets are family-owned. We all know how tense a regular holiday dinner could get. Now imagine trying to decide who gets to run a multi-million-dollar fleet of trucks before the pie is served.
It is an absolute minefield. You are no longer just dealing with cold business logic. You are dealing with legacy, pride, and decades of complex interpersonal histories.
The baggage.
So much baggage. The material brings up the tough questions that founders actively avoid. Who actually takes over? Are the family members who feel entitled to the role truly ready for the operational intensity of the logistics industry?
What if they don't even want it?
Exactly. What if the next generation simply isn't interested in the family business? How do you balance a parent's desire for fairness among their children with the stark, unforgiving reality of capability?
And simply avoiding those conversations doesn't protect the family or the business. It just guarantees a catastrophic crisis down the line.
I would argue it accelerates the crisis. The solution provided in the research is deeply analytical, but highly necessary. You have to embrace a structured approach to separate ownership from management.
Just because you own it doesn't mean you run it.
Bingo. Just because someone inherits shares in the company does not mean they are equipped to manage the day-to-day operations. By defining leadership criteria clearly and preparing successors properly, you protect both the business's stability and the family relationships. Transitions must be carefully planned in a boardroom over years, not triggered by a sudden health crisis in an emergency room.
Let's pivot to the financial side of this, because there is a massive incentive to get this right that goes way beyond just maintaining family harmony. How do external forces, like banks or investors, view a company that is entirely dependent on its founder?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Leadership uncertainty is a silent destroyer of financial value. The findings are very clear on this point. Banks and financiers actively assess leadership risk when they are looking at extending credit facilities.
They're looking to see who is actually running the show.
They absolutely are. Major corporate clients assess your operational stability before signing long-term transport contracts. If your business relies entirely on you pulling the levers, that is a massive red flag for anyone looking to put money into your operation or trust you with their supply chain.
I want to make sure we clearly unpack a term that comes up here. Enterprise value. Let's say you want to sell part of your business or bring in outside investors to help you scale or secure a massive funding facility to buy 50 new trucks. What does enterprise value actually mean in this context?
Think of enterprise value as the actual price tag of your business if you had to sell it tomorrow. If the business only runs because you are there making every decision, that price tag drops significantly.
Because it can't buy you.
Exactly. Because a buyer cannot buy you. They are buying the cash flow and the systems. If your company operates on undocumented instinct, its value is artificially capped. But if you have documented systems, a clear leadership structure, and depth in your management team, that commands total confidence. Strong succession planning directly and measurably increases enterprise value. Weak planning actively reduces it.
So we understand the stakes, we see the benefits, and we know the harsh financial realities. But how do you know if you are currently sitting in the danger zone? The material outlines some very specific warning signs. I want to put these directly to you, the listener.
This is the real litmus test.
It is. Do any of these red flags resonate with your day-to-day reality? Are you making all the critical decisions personally? Is there absolutely no one ready to step into your role tomorrow morning? Are your key processes completely undocumented?
Do your senior managers operate reactively, just sitting around waiting for your instructions?
Yeah. Do you feel hopelessly trapped in the day-to-day operations, constantly worrying about what would happen if?
If you are nodding your head to any of those questions right now, there is a crucial takeaway. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals, and signals require leadership action. The good news is that the research doesn't just leave us with red flags. It provides a roadmap.
Thank goodness for that.
Right. It breaks down the solution into 5 highly actionable steps. And it is important to emphasize that this is about creating clarity and resilience, not bogging your company down in unnecessary corporate bureaucracy.
Let's spend some real time on these 5 steps, because recognizing you have a problem is only half the battle. Where do you actually start on a Monday morning? The first step suggested is mapping out and identifying critical roles. But how do you separate a truly critical role from just an important employee?
That is the essential distinction. You have to pinpoint the absolute essential positions required for operational continuity. We aren't just looking at the CEO title. You have to ask, who is the managing director? Who is the operations manager actually ensuring the trucks leave the yard on time?
Who is the financial controller keeping the cash flowing to buy the diesel?
Exactly. You are identifying the specific seats on the bus that cannot sit empty for even 24 hours without causing a major disruption. You separate the critical from the important by asking, if this person is gone for a week, does the business lose money or clients?
That makes perfect sense. Once you know what the critical seats are, step 2 is assessing the leadership gaps.
This step requires brutal, uncomfortable honesty. Look at those critical roles you just identified. Do you actually have capable individuals in your ranks right now who are ready to step into those shoes?
Or if we go back to our initial scenario, would operations completely stall?
You have to map the literal gap between what the business needs to survive and the talent you currently have in the building. You cannot let optimism cloud your judgment here.
Step 3 is where the real heavy lifting seems to begin. Develop people intentionally. But how do you actually do that? You can't just send a great fleet dispatcher to a weekend leadership seminar and expect them to suddenly run the company.
This raises an important question about how we view talent and potential. Leadership cannot just be assumed. It has to be actively and deliberately developed. You hit the nail on the head. A great dispatcher does not naturally become a great operations director without guidance.
They need more context.
High-potential managers need deliberate exposure to areas of the business they might not naturally see in their day-to-day jobs. They need deep financial understanding. They need to sit in on major client management meetings to see how relationships are handled.
To see the bigger picture.
Yes. They need exposure to strategic thinking and risk management. You have to intentionally stretch them, give them small projects outside their comfort zone, and let them make mistakes before you actually need them to take the reins.
Which flows perfectly into step 4, Document core processes. I think a lot of founders hear documentation and immediately picture a massive three-ring corporate binder gathering dust on a shelf. What does this actually look like in practice?
It is definitely not a dusty binder. This is the unglamorous but utterly essential work of creating usable playbooks. Everything critical to the business must be standardized and pulled out of people's heads.
In a logistics context, what does that mean?
It means having a written, accessible protocol for exact fuel management. It means documenting the daily cadence of cash flow monitoring. It means having a step-by-step guide for what happens when a truck breaks down at a border crossing at 2 a.m.
Because if only you know who to call at 2 a.m., you're the one getting woken up.
Exactly. If a process is critical to survival, it must be written down in a way that someone else can pick it up and execute it. A process that exists only in your memory is a massive liability.
And finally, step 5. Align structure with growth. I imagine this is where a lot of successful, fast-growing companies stumble.
They absolutely do. As your fleet expands or as your business scales in whatever industry you are in, your leadership structure must evolve with it. Think of it like scaffolding on a building. Informal, casual management systems. The kind where everyone just shouts across the room to get things done, work fine for a single-story house. But those informal systems will collapse under the weight of a skyscraper.
The structure literally breaks.
The management structure that got you to 10 trucks will mathematically break at 50 trucks. You have to continually rebuild and reinforce the scaffolding as the business grows.
So what does this all mean? When we boil down everything this research has presented, from the pressure cooker of daily operations to the complexities of family dynamics and enterprise value, the core message of succession planning is really about one single word: trust.
Trust is everything.
You are actively building trust with your employees who want to know their jobs and their futures are secure. You are building trust with your clients who need to know their supply chains are reliable no matter what happens behind the scenes. You are building trust with suppliers who want consistency and with financiers who demand confidence before they write a check.
And in any relentless industry, that level of trust isn't just nice to have. It is a massive, quantifiable competitive advantage.
Completely.
I want to leave the audience with the central, challenging question posed right at the end of the material. It is a brilliant distillation of everything we have discussed today. Ask yourself, are you building a business that survives you or one that depends on you?
That is the question.
Because at the end of the day, strong leaders build resilient organizations. They do not build personal dependency. True succession planning is not about stepping away. It is about stepping up as a strategic leader.
I really love that framing, a business that survives you. Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, building on that idea of operational dependency. We talked at the very beginning about the scenario of disappearing tomorrow.
The nightmare scenario.
Let's make it a bit more practical and slightly less dramatic. Imagine a scenario where you are suddenly entirely unreachable. No phone, no email, no text messages for a full 2 weeks. Think deeply about your operations right now. What is the very first specific process or the very first key client relationship that would actively break?
Don't just think in general terms either.
Right. Try to pinpoint the exact immediate point of failure. Identifying that single point of failure today might just be the exact blueprint for your very first succession planning move tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it spiked some critical thinking about the foundations of your organization. Keep questioning your operational dependencies, keep building systems that outlast you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.